And I'm going to start with and I'll probably be working with this little brush a lot. So find a smaller brush that you are comfortable with. This is my 1/4 inch angle brush. It's small. I've got small areas to work in. So I'm just wetting it right now. And I want to come in and just lift out some shapes in here. And then I'm just taking a damp brush and kind of rolling it around. I'll lift out some of this color. And that just brings in a little bit of shape, because all of these things are kind of bubbling and boiling. And I think rather than try to change that, I'm going to add that color into places. Now that color is my ultramarine blue and my alizarin crimson. I've been using that rather than dioxazine purple because everybody uses way too much purple, and the purple is a staining color and then you're stuck with it. So I'm just mixing up some purple here, cause out. I'm not going to use a lot. I'm just going to. It's kind of on the bluish side. It's a cooler purple, but I can come in and put this color in places that I've already got some darks going. Put it down. I'm rinsing my brush. Then I'm just going to take and move that paint around. Now I can use that to kind of shape a cloud in front of it. I just lift it a little bit. Needs to probably be a little bluer. When I go in and edit these things, I look to see my camera angles. I've been moving this camera all around. This doesn't look too bad. I don't really want to outline these as such. They can have darker areas in them, but I want to keep the edges soft because this is just soft clouds. This is right here is kind of negative painting. Putting a little shadow back in here. Like I said, clouds, they have shadows and dark shapes in them that I don't know how the light is working in them to get those shapes. All I'm really doing is, and if you like yours, you do not need to change it. All I'm doing here is adjusting my color, which, I have a license. I can come in and do that anytime I feel like it. I just am throwing in some of that color so that little lone blue cloud doesn't look like a alien invasion. But I can use this color to help shape or define other clouds, either with positive painting or negative painting. Like this might be the positive part, but then this area here would be the negative part. Okay. All right, I'll leave that and see where that goes. Now another thing I have is I have this pink down here, which is you know, kind of a unique color in itself. So I need to add that someplace else. I think I'm going to add a little touch of it down here in these foreground waves, because these foreground waves do have a little bit of lavender in them. So I'm going to take and this is just, I'm going to take my alizarin crimson and a lot of water. This is just going to be a wash. So it's very, very light. Let's get a piece of paper here. So this is, you know, it's going to be just like that, and then it dries lighter. So that's all I'm going to do there. And this is my 1/2 inch. And again, this is water, so I want to keep it looking flat. I'm just going to come in and just, this isn't, I'm not painting it solid. I'm just putting a little bit of that color in. Just picked up a little water just to kind of blend it out. It's subtle, but it will kind of show up. Now the colors underneath it are going to affect the final outcome, so that's fine. All right, I'm going to go back to my little angle brush, and I'm going to take that same color that I was using in the clouds, that purpley color, and I'm going to use that because purple is your natural shadow color. And so whenever you're doing shadows, you want to have purple in them. Okay, so up in here, I'm going to be putting in a few shadows. Shadows are going to be kind of like what's underneath, the back sides of rocks. This gives just a little bit of depth to these rocks. Now this is where you don't go over everything you have. You just put in a few of these little, I heard them explained as dots and dashes. You know, I'll do a few of these and then maybe just let it dry and see how I like it, but make them different shapes. You know, just some of them will be small, some of them might be long, others will be almost vertical, some of them, you know, pretty horizontal. You know, just that gives the idea that there's a jumble of rocks in here. You gotta go out in here, same thing. And down around the base it's going to be wetter, so it can be darker along the base. Alright, so I'm just going to carry that on. Now I'm kind of using it as a combination of wet rock and shadow, because I'm looking at the photograph, which is right in front of me, and because this is so small, in the overall scheme of things, it's in some places it's going to be hard to pick out what is what, but your brain has enough information to kind of figure out that, okay, those are, there's water there, that's wet rocks, and they're rocks, so it's probably shadows. There's a little rock right here that's actually pretty dark all on its own, so I'm just going to darken this whole thing. It's wet. It's also got pile of rocks. That may be one that was there already and they just piled rocks around it. Alright, I'm getting kind of out where you can't see me, but I'll when I stop this, I will come in and finish off the end of that. It's just more of the same. Alright, while I'm here, let me see what I can do. Now some of these, like this little wave that's coming in here, if you've got a shadow, you're going to have a little bit of a highlight, especially on the tops of these waves. So I'm just lifting. Okay. So what I'm doing is using just the edge of this brush and just wetting the top of some of these little waves here. And I'm going to just pat it. That'll give a little bit of a highlight to that. Any place where you think you want to put a little, get a little bit of a sparkle or to lift out some foam. Like here, I lifted out just a little bit of foam where it might be crashing down because of the rocks. Just lifting out some foam. I guess I could come in and finish off the shadows in these rocks too, since I moved it. So I'm just coming back in, adding shadows, adding wetness. That's going to dry. It's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be as dark as it looks right now. While I have that lavender color, now this is a little wave coming in here, a little bit of foam. It was not a real choppy day or anything, so the waves are pretty tame. I'm still using that same shadow color that I was using before. the blue and the alizarin crimson. I'm just adding some water to it so that it's very weak. Now at the bottom of this foam, I'm going to just come in and making little circular movements with my brush. And I can kind of stir up the bottom edge of that foam with this. This gives the foam just a little bit of height and movement. There's really only a little bit of white, actual white of the paper, when you're doing something like this. There's a lot of, oops, let me move this over. Rinse my brush, kind of soften that top edge of this. Little tiny circles. And I'm using just like the top corner of this and kind of just gently blending those in. Move it over here. I put like a line down, then I rinse my brush, and then I just dry it off, and then take a damp brush and just tease the top part of it, leaving some of the white. That becomes the highlight on the foam. And I do want to like soften that bottom edge, so I'm taking the paint down. Now if you ever look at foam in the water, you'll see that as the wave is turning and collapsing in on itself, some of that foam goes under the water. So you'll have, you know, that bottom edge isn't as defined as you think it is. There's a lot of that foam underneath the water. Just come on across. Down here's a place where I can lift out some highlights. I suggest that maybe it's starting to break a little bit. You don't need to go all the way across. You know, that because there's movement in this water, the sun may only be catching little parts of it. That's why you see the sparkles on the tops of the water when you go down there, because the sun's just catching the highest parts of that. Now, this is something, you know, if you like it the way you have it, that's fine. I just want to show you this in case you want to do a little more detail. There is some, you know, how when the waves come in, they kind of break up and have little trails of foam coming off. Well, this is just the same brush, and I'm just going to kind of come in and wet areas and kind of scribble it and lift. You don't want these to be real prominent. Some of them may not even show up if I... But they kind of start at the back side of the foam that's coming to shore, and then they kind of trail out. You'll find that in some places they'll look better than others depending on the paint that you have. And you can also come in with a little bit of color. You can use either your lavender or the pink or the green or something, and just kind of come in and tap some more color in, leaving spaces. This will be kind of like negative painting that foam. I'm just using the lavender blue that I had. But it's really kind of a scribbly look. So I'm gonna, in something like this, when I'm taking my time, I'll do kind of a combination of things. I'll come in and pull out some of the foam, and then come back in and put in some of that, you know, the watercolor. Probably best to let it dry before coming back in with the water, you know, with the you know, with your paint, because it will fill up what you just lifted out. But that's, you know, that's one thing. If you like it the way it is, you know, leave it alone. Now back in here, there's a, let me move this down. Why am I talking over myself? I don't know what changed, but I'm hearing it. I was hearing an echo of myself there. I'll come back in with a little bit of water type color and fill that in a little bit. And then there's also ripples. You'll see them up on shore. They may not have any foam to them. Some of these do, but ripples, you can just suggest. This is that same ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson I've been using, but you can use the green. I'm just remixing the color, and I'm just gonna, like, you'll see how the ripples, just their waves of water is starting to go back into the ocean, and they don't have much, just like a little shadow that, you know, lets you know that they're there. And sometimes they will overlap with other little ripples that are coming in off of the water. So you may have, you know, I can get stuck in this busy work, so I have to be careful of doing that. But I'm just wanting to show you. You can take just some of that blue and just kind of pull it up. This is just going to suggest more of the wet sand. You know, if you kind of lost some of your wet sand. No shadows, it's already gone into the into the sand back in there. So, you know, at this point, it's sort of a combination of lifting and, you know, putting in some detail. Over here, I lifted out some clouds in this pink stuff. There's some really distant fluffy clouds back there. And all I did was that same little brush and just wet on my brush and just, again, these are things that if you like them, put them in. If you don't like them, leave them out. But I'm just stirring up the paint that's already on there. Then I'm going to come back in with some of that lavender color. And just, well, that's too dark. So I'll just take some water and thin it out. I just want a real thin, these are so far away you don't see a lot of color, but it kind of shows that there's clouds way off in the distance. Just kind of tapping. And this, you know, these clouds are probably the same size as the ones that you have in the front here. But because they're so far away, they're very small. As things go into the distance, they get smaller, less intense in color, less detail. Let that dry. Now I'm going to come back in and finally put in some color on my little building. If you have phthalo blue, now remember you cannot lift phthalo blue. Especially once it's dry. If it's still wet, you have a better chance of getting it off. Okay, where is it? Phthalo blue is this color here, and that's almost the color that we want. There's a little yellow from previous colors. Now, if you don't have phthalo blue, use that combination of ultramarine blue and hooker's green. It'll get you close. Probably be a little friendlier. This is just a little tiny bit of color. And you don't want to get it too dark. You want it to stay light. So make sure you add enough water to keep it light. And it won't matter if you go over some of those background dark green trees with this color. Now I need to lift out the ramp, so I've just got a little dampness on my brush. Yeah, that's so they don't have to leap off the side there. So just a little. I don't think I'm going to put in any of the railings on that. There's a flagpole back here. This is where having a good brush, this little brush comes to a really sharp edge, so I can do some of this smaller stuff. Up in the trees, Again, I'm using that shadow color that I mixed up. I just need a soft color, and I'll just use the edge of my brush to just tap in some tree trunks. You want them dark enough so that they stand out against the clouds. That light cloud behind it was on purpose, in case you haven't figured that out. Maybe a couple of them standing there. And these, you know, these are far away. They're not, you know, I would say maybe a quarter mile or so. Going to use that same color. Just want to put a little bit of darkness right under the eave. And there's a little window. That's all it is just a touch. It's just a kind of a touch underneath there, and then a little touch down. Just suggestions. People have enough information to know that that's shadows and a window. You know, you don't need to go and start putting all signs and everything else out. Now there's some little structure right in front of it, but I am not going to put that in. I don't see a need for that. But I will come in, same thing, I'm just going to lift out. There's some palm trees in the front, so I'm just going to lift out just some shapes. Don't make them all the same size. Break them up. I'm looking at the reference photo. Some of these trunks may go in and out from behind other bushes in front of them. There's a bunch of little ones over here. Don't line them all up like a fence, you know, or little soldiers. Angle some of them. Try to connect them with something up above so that they look like they have a purpose. I'm just looking. I'm not going to put in everything I see. I'm tempted to. My eyes are going, oh, there's that little place you like to paint. You know, it's way over on this side. There's a little broken, looked like a seawall that was over there. I'm not going to put it in. It's too small. Only I know what it is when it's that small. Come in and suggest that there's a palm tree coming in through that little opening I left. Right now I'm fiddling. Going to add just a touch more of that turquoise to my building. Because, like I said, it's going to dry a little lighter, but I want it to be turquoise enough that it looks like what it's supposed to look like. And then, if you want to, get out your toothbrush, bring this up here, and you can scatter stuff. I've got some blue and umber on here, or blue and burnt sienna. A little dark color. I'm just taking my, move this over. Okay, this is my toothbrush, picking up a little bit of blue and mix it in with what's already there. Because this is just going to be some of the debris and things that are on the ground there. Even throw green in there. And I'm going to point it down. At least we're not going to get everybody wet today. And then just kind of splatter it on. It always looks really intense when you do this, and then it'll dry and it'll be a lot. It won't be as intense. Pick up some of that green, everything on my. This isn't up close, so there'd be a little more idea of rocks and stuff. And you can come in some of these larger ones, kind of soften them into the ground. I just kind of, I have to let some of these dry so I can so I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come back and touch those up, and that'll probably do it for the dye. I do have to do a little bit of work on some of the foam that I put in. Okay, now what I did back here, this is that area that I kind of lifted out. I just picked up some of the blue-green that I was using, the hookers in ultramarine blue, and I didn't cover up all of that I lifted out. I just kind of added some color back in, leaving some of that lighter area so it looks like foam kind of going back into the distance. Now some of you probably going, I'm not going to splatter, but the splatter is rocks, and this being ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, I can lift out a lot of that. But if you look at the photograph, you'll see that there's a lot of debris and stuff right there at the edge of the water. It's been floating up from wherever it's come from. So what I'm doing now is I'm just coming in and kind of softening some of those, like where the foam is. They may not be as defined, and I can also come in and I'm just picking up a little bit of burnt sienna and stuff. Maybe make a bigger rock that's there in the water. to that. Because there's rocks and stuff right there at the water's edge. You know, I see those things and I want to put them in. You know, you may see those things and want to avoid them. That's totally up to you. But I'm just putting in stuff. You don't need to do that. There's seaweed, and this is just a little bit of the hooker's green, a little touch of burnt sienna, just to make kind of a seaweed color that's kind of laying there on the ground. Rinse my brush, kind of soften it. The sand's going to be piled up along the bottom of it, so it won't have a real hard bottom edge. You know, it doesn't have to be anything. I'm just making shapes. I'm not you know, thinking, you know, seaweed and all the little bulbs and stuff. This is just shapes. These are things that are along the bottom. You don't have to put them in. I'm just doing that because, one, I like to put them in, and two, if you want to put them in, you need to know how to do it. I'm not going to put in every clump I see. I'm just putting in clumps. I'm going to just lift out a little bit of color so it gives maybe a little shine to the seaweed there. What else did I see that I wanted to do? If I need to, I can come back in. I think maybe I need to bring my plants up a little bit back here. Cover these houses just a little. You know, if you see some that are in the water that are a little too much, a little too hard, just take a damp brush and just blend them in. You don't need to eliminate them, you just need to soften them. Too often we think, oh my God, it's ruined. Just soften those in, because you're going to see rocks. You know, you can see them in the picture. You know, if you're there, you're going to see them, you know, even better than in the photograph. You know, so just soften those, you know, ones that bother you, and then leave the rest. But I think, you know, right now I'm looking for things to do, which probably means I'm done.